I was a professional con artist. I'm 23 and I'm retired. I ran a variety of small cons and very few large. Ask me anything. Is there something people should realize? There is no system. There is no organization. There is no underlying or overlooming structure to any of it. There's just people. People who barely link together in little chain links all the traffic of information, systems, money, communications, law, all of it. And if you can see the links you can unlink the right ones with the right people skills and pretty much get anywhere. That's stuff you ought to be able to do, con artist or not. Are you liar in everyday situations? I have a friend who is an amazing con artist, but he is also a pathological liar. It's hard to hang out with him because I can never tell when he is lying or not because he is so damn persuasive. I'm not a liar in everyday situations. I'd say given the ability I'm uncommonly honest outside of the realm of a con. How did you learn? Speech and debate class in high school. It taught me to be persuasive even when I knew I was spitting bullshit. 90% of cons are just talking to people. Speech and debate made me good at that. I've always had an innate ability to see potential exploits in things, loopholes, tricks and shortcuts, and the rest of it came pretty naturally. It's actually the only thing I've ever been really good at. Can you give an example of a con you used to make money or something similar to a con you used to make money? The one I've retired on made me the most money. I hijacked the unclaimed commissions for the renewal on contracts for just under 100,000 wireless customers and any subsequent renewals by those customers, unless claimed by individual representatives. The majority of the customers I claimed are on 2-year contracts, and I get a percentage of their bill monthly. It's a dizzyingly small percentage, but there are a lot of them. Have you ever felt that you were very close to getting caught? Ever been caught? I have been very close to being caught. Once, I was sofa surfing and went out, and the person whose sofa I'd surfed went through my bag. Called the police. US Marshals became involved. My bag, my computer, and everything I owned, not a great deal, was in their custody for about 2 weeks. But there was nothing they could take to court just in the bag, and everything in the computer was an encrypted file containers which when opened with the dummy password only showed a few gigs of lesbian porn. If everything on your computer was encrypted, what in your bag made them call the US Marshals? Something I haven't done since. Writing shut down with a pencil. What kind of things did you write down that would be incriminating? I don't understand what you would have written down that would be so suspicious, unless it was some kind of Ocean's 11 heist diagram. I had an outline for the con, a thin outline, and nothing specific enough to be incriminating, but sure was enough to be suspicious as hell. I'm a writer, and I write a lot. I always have. The girl who found it, and her father who took it all knew this, and I was able to convince them it was all just pro-writing for a story. They bought it. What was your first con? My first con was printing barcodes onto stickers and pasting them over barcodes on products at retail stores for discounts. For instance, taking down the UPC of a $15 Bluetooth headset, printing a barcode for that number, cutting out the sticker, and pasting it over the UPC of a $90 headset of the same brand. When you get to check out the barcode scanned, charges you for the $15. Then you keep it, sell it, in some stores that let you return without a receipt. I'd peel the sticker off and take it back. I actually used to do this so often I could tell you what code a UPC was written in at a glance. Do you think you will ever come out of retirement? End retirement? I don't know. I doubt it. I got into it because I was stupid and wanted to prove something to myself. I'm only 23 now, but I have a nice life and something to lose. I didn't have all that before. Maybe. People are too dynamic to predict, even by themselves. So I can't give a decent answer to you. Did you go to college? I did. Dropped out after the first year though. It bored the duck out of me. Do you always work alone, or have you ever worked with another person? Never worked with another person who knew I was conning. But I worked with a lot of people while performing cons. It's not that hard to pull a con. What's hard is to be able to deal with your conscience when you have one. I had a big problem with conscience with most of my better ideas, so I never did any of them. All the ones I carried out I didn't really have any sort of moral parameters for at the outset, but I wouldn't pull a con if it had the potential of making anyone cry. Can you give us an example of one you found moral issues with? I once robbed a bank for about 25k, gave it back though. I felt bad for the teller. I was setting up an account and the assistant took me into her office to explain the types of accounts and kinds of fees and interest rates, and is showing me all of this stuff on her computer screen. She's turned it toward me, and somewhere in there she types in my opening balance. I'd brought $250. We are talking about using online banking and phone banking, and she hustles off to get a brochure that she says will explain it a little better. While she's gone, I notice there are no cameras in the office. I'm completely alone, and I probably have more than 30 seconds. So I reached across the desk and deleted the period from my opening balance. She came back in, printed the opening statement, handed it to me, told me that my card could be in the mail along with my checks etc, and I thanked her and started out. Stopped at the door, turned around and went back to her office, asked if she might have made a mistake with the opening balance because I brought 250 and it said here 25,000. She turned whiter than salt, thanked me far too much, and corrected it. Do you get laid? I mean, it's hard to start a relationship when people don't know your job. Yes, often. I'm not unattractive. I'm an excellent conversationalist and people drink. It happens all the time. What do you do with yourself now that you have so much time? Do you communicate with your family anymore? I know you mentioned you don't get particularly close with other people. Do you think that will ever change in the future? I'm in a play right now actually. I'm about to go back on stage, but I'll be back. We are nearing intermission. I write a lot in my spare time. I enjoy that. I haven't seen my family in years, but they'll be getting a Christmas package from me just like every other year. As for friends, I couldn't promise you either way on that one. I'm a people change. So probably. How much money have you made? Sounds like you are smart enough to have made a lot of money doing legit business for a lot less stress, except of course it wouldn't be as cool. A lot. I'm a grandmaster duck up and just about everything else bullshit is really about the only thing I'm good at and ever have been good at. What else would I do? Probably it's just me being too lazy to have a decent look at it, but what sort of work is there for someone who has no talent but bullshit? I could lobby the duck out of the whole of Congress, probably, but I hate lobbyists. I'd feel guilty constantly. I could do PR for Philip Morris, like Nick Naylor, but I'd feel like an asshole and yeah, guilty as hell. I could sell a ton of shit I don't like, but I worked in sales for a while, and while I was really good at it, I hated it, didn't feel right doing it, and every time I got someone to buy a thing they didn't need or never wanted, I felt guilty as hell. In a strange way, this is actually the only really happy medium I've found between what I can do and what there is to do. But like I said, I really haven't looked that closely at it, and I haven't got much motivation to do so. Have you ever been scammed yourself? I paid tuition at university for a year. What are your ethical standards? It seems like you went out of your way to avoid hurting individuals, but there isn't any money for free. Eventually, if you take money you didn't earn, it will be coming out of someone's pocket. Have you thought about the fact that you aren't really creating anything or providing a service to society? I really don't mean this in a disrespectful way, and I'm just curious about how you view ethics and morality. I don't try to justify ducking people over because I'm not a politician, a CEO, or a banker. I try my best to make what I need to live on without ducking with people who need every penny they can manage, something that the majority of those who would argue their justification never really do. I won't argue with you. I've been a thief, and I'm an asshole for it, sure. Morally, it's wrong. I agree with you. But if I ever feel guilty about it, I can just read some world news and go back to really not giving a shit. I appreciate your honesty. Have you thought about trying to build something positive with what you've earned, or change your legacy in another way? I'm not really concerned much with legacy. Never really thought of it. Building something positive? I don't know. I'm not really the family type. I do donate to charity pretty regularly. I did Secret Santa with the rest of you on one of my other accounts. How do you feel about what you do? Are you constantly afraid of getting caught, etc? What about your romantic life? I'm not constantly afraid of being caught. I'm settled. I don't have much of a romantic life, but I get more than my share of that. More than enough to appease the libido at least. Did you have children or close family at the time you were doing cons? If so, did you ever think of possible consequences this might have? Or would it just have teased you even more to have a higher risk? I'm single. I have no children. I moved out of the parents' house when I was 17, and by the age of 21 I was 10,000 miles away from all of them. I've been running all over the place since. Never involved any family in it. I almost did once. Fell through though. How do you explain having an income but no job to people you know? Does having to hide it make it harder to have friends and relationships? I move around a lot. I don't bother getting really close to people. I never did, even when I wasn't doing this. It just didn't take. I actually tried to have this conversation with someone once. I was trying to explain that I never really had any kind of family attachment. There's some special emotional thing that people get with their immediate family that in some way differentiates those people emotionally from the category of people that they just know from somewhere. I never had that. My parents were always just other people. My siblings were always just people I'd met that lived in the same space as I did for a while. I was friends with them, but there was no difference between them and people at my school who died known for an adequate amount of time. I'll meet people. I'll have conversations and form relationships, but I'm always on a trip. I never live where I'm always from somewhere else. And that's the story I tell anyone. Not only does everyone believe it, because why wouldn't you? It puts them in the mode of my being a temporary person, which I like. Most of the time. I'm genuinely curious and not trying to insult you here, but have you ever considered you might be somewhat sociopathic? I'm not vehemently opposed to the idea, but I don't bother much about naming it. I haven't offended anyone, and anyone I do offend I do feel genuinely bad, and I do immediately embark on whatever crusade is involved in fixing it. Does your life kick ass? How high is your IQ? Where did you learn these talents? Are you good looking? Note, if your life is that much cooler than mine and you're a good looking dude, I will kill myself. 154 at last test. Self-taught. Don't kill yourself. Does it ever amaze you the box life people limit themselves to? I'm sure a 9-to-5 week job on a fixed salary seems ridiculous to a guy with your mother ducking Ocean's 11 point of view. You crave what you don't have. You're attracted to this because you haven't done it. Often enough I wonder about doing something peaceful, mundane, and boring and not having my head spin with bullshit 24 hours a day. It's attractive to me because I don't have that. The grass is greener, mate.